This is my authentic practice demo on musical improvisation. Musical improvisation is the creative activity of immediate musical composition, which combines performance with communication of emotions and instrumental technique, as well as spontaneous response to other musicians. Thus, musical ideas in improvisation are spontaneous, but may be based on chord changes and melodies in various styles of music. Unnotated music is generally thought to be improvisatory, but a great deal of it is firmly structured. The outlines are often well thought out and sections are roughly in place, although some decoration can be applied in terms of cadenzas, changes of shifting rhythm, and the details of instrumental performance.
Hi Damon, I'm here to ask you, how do you make music?
Well, I make music with my guitar, mainly. I think today we'll talk a little bit about improvisation and
Great,
what that means. So improvisation basically is spontaneously composing music based off of the chord changes and the melody of a song that you may be playing. Not exactly like traditional composing where you basically start from scratch with some sort of an idea. So the idea is already in place and then you're building upon that. So I thought I would show some examples today using a song called Nostalgia in Times Square by Charles Mingus. So there's a couple different ways that you can learn songs. One is just with your ear, listening to a piece of music and transcribing that literally, whether you're writing it down or just memorizing it, still transcribing. Another way, especially a lot of jazz musicians work, is to work off of what we call lead sheets. A lead sheet is the melody of the song written out, whether it's someone that's sang the song or whether it's just an instrumental purely, there's always a melody. And then the chord changes are there, or the harmonies. So we can build upon that. So let me show you a few examples. So what I'll do first is I'm going to just play through the head of this tune once. So the head is basically the chord changes in the melody. And then I'll improvise one time through.
So it'll be like theme and variation.
Sort of like theme and
Okay.
variation, as much as I can do.
All right.
Okay.
That was great.
Nice.
I
Thank you.
like that.
So some of the ideas that I did, basically there's 2 points that you want to try to first start working on or focusing on when you're improvising. One is based off of the melody of the song, and then the other is based off of the chord changes. So if you can do a good blend of that, then you're able to communicate what the song still is and communicate the chord changes, whether I'm playing by myself like I just did or whether I'm playing with a group of people. So I tried to walk some of the bass line like you might hear a jazz bass player do, and at the same time get the melody in there and some of the chords as I could fit them in. So I started with just some simple ideas like playing the arpeggios, which is the notes of the chord, or playing some scales that might match up with the chords. And then that's where you can kind of get into what you're hearing on your own, because there's always some different ideas of what scales might fit each chord. And that always goes back to the melody, of course, depending on what the melody's doing. So, for instance, on the top of the song, there's an F7 chord. I chose to play it as an F9, which works okay because in the melody there's a G in the melody, or there's no G at all. So the 9 in this case would be the G. So I played some of the blues scale in there. I also played some of the Mixolydian scale, which goes right along with the dominant 7 chord. Although in this case, we're kind of playing modally, even though the song is in F. Since we're playing an F7, that's a dominant sound. So we're really kind of looking at this song modally as opposed to diatonically. So I'm treating each chord as they come by as a separate key in essence, with some exceptions. Some of the exceptions would be where there's what we call 2/5 chords that come by, which is a minor chord preceded by a dominant chord, and they're a fifth apart. So we call those 2/5. So I might treat those two chords together like one key. I may tend to focus maybe on one of those two chords or both of them. So it depends on how, I'm playing through the song. So for instance, at the end of this song where you hear the part, there's a series of 2/5s. D minor, G7, C minor, F7, B flat minor, E flat 7, which leads us back to the F. So through those I might decide to play just arpeggios or chord tones, or I might also use some of the scales that would go along with those. So for the minor chord, you would hear the Dorian mode. The Dorian mode would go along with the 2 minor chord. Okay. And then for the dominant chord, in this case, in the first 2/5, it's a G7. You would probably hear me play the Mixolydian mode on that. Okay. So those are some of the things I was thinking. And then you can play chromatically, which is to play all of the notes in between, paying attention to strong points in that, whether it would be a melody note that would happen at the time or a chord tone that comes to rest on. So in that essence, you can kind of get away with playing anything as long as you use your ear to guide you to like the resting points, which would be the chord.